I wake up and my brain is absolutely bouncing. It's like my mind has been waiting all night for me to wake up so that it could share all the great ideas that it came up with while I was sleeping. These ideas have led me to some epic adventures. I've spent the night in a snow cave that I dug out of the drifts on Lookout Mountain. I've hiked into Loon Lake near McCall and climbed through the wreckage of a B-23 bomber crash site. I've kayaked with eagles flying overhead on Lake Coeur d'Alene at Christmas time. All of these were just part of last year. The ideas, they don't stop there. They just keep coming. Every moment, new ideas are playing through my mind like a million little video clips on fast forward. It's very distracting. And it's led to a lot of projects that have ended up about 75% done. The problem with this is when you only end up 75% done, people view you as unreliable. I needed a guide, a set of guidelines that I would be able to follow that would assure that I was holding myself accountable to finishing the things that I started. I learned something as I was developing this guide to epic adventures, that if I was able to follow just 5 simple steps, that would help me identify the potential success of any idea, I was far more likely to accomplish it successfully. Now you might be wondering how I ended up kayaking with eagles at Christmas time. Well, it all started with eagle watching. Eagle watching is something that a lot of local people do in December when the height of the eagle migration is happening through our area. The eagles stop by our local lakes and feast on the salmon that are now dying after recently spawning on their way to places with more food. I loaded up my kids so that I could be one of those eagle watchers and headed down to the lake. We looked out there at the eagles soaring over the water through the binoculars. I took bad pictures with my cell phone, like everybody else was. And as I looked out there at the water, I had an idea. I decided to run it through my 5 steps from my guide to epic adventures. Step 1, have an idea. Any idea. There's no such thing as good ideas or bad ideas. If somebody tells you an idea is good or bad, they're running it through their filter of limiting belief instead of your filter of unlimited potential. This idea needed a filter of my own. That's step 2. Desire is the filter for ideas. Desire is either low or desire is high. If desire is low, dismiss the idea. Don't worry, a new one will come immediately, I promise. If desire is high, this is worth pursuing. Next, we go to vision. If desire is high, vision is clear. You can envision clearly the results that you expect to receive from executing on this idea. If you can't create a plan from this clear vision, it may not be clear enough, meaning your desire is probably not high enough. Maybe you were influenced by somebody else's desire. Somebody wanted you to do it more than you wanted to do it. It's very important as you go through these steps that vision ends up clear. Because if vision is clear, you can identify why you want to achieve those results. This is your motivation. Motivation is why you are going to get the results from the idea that you clearly envisioned. And commitment is going to guide you through making changes if necessary. Commitment needs to be high. If commitment is high, then it allows you to redirect when everything falls apart. Imagine if something happened along the way. It takes longer than you thought it would. It costs more than you thought it should. The people that were there to support you in the beginning are nowhere to be found. And the resources you thought you would have available aren't anymore. High commitment is what redirects you to a new path to making sure that you accomplish those results that you so clearly envisioned. Kayaking with eagles? That is something I was absolutely motivated to do. I was motivated to experiencing something that would increase my love for this area that we live in here in Coeurdalene. I was completely committed to it. I was so committed, I did all the research. I looked up how much time it takes to either swim over to the bank or get hypothermia. My commitment came down a little bit. Now, nothing happens without action, but not just any action. This is willing action. This is action you don't have to talk yourself into. This is action you are willing to do. I took action. I called friends that love to go kayaking and shared this idea. They wanted to go too. Remember that commitment that came down a little bit? Having friends there to rescue you? My commitment went right back up. I was committed to do this no matter what. I gathered up my winter gear. I made sure that my friends knew when and where we were going to show up, and I was ready to go. So let's do it. I showed up 2 days before Christmas, bright and early in the morning. My friends were there. I felt like I was prepared. I had my snowboarding gear. I had my life jacket. I had my fuzzy hat. And I had my hot chocolate. I even had that third pair of socks that made my boots feel a little bit tight, but it was really cold. So I was appreciative that I had put those on. Now, I started to feel a little bit nervous as we unloaded those kayaks and put them on the water. All these ideas started coming into my mind. The what ifs and the worries. Well, like I had promised to do, I run every idea through my 5 steps. None of those worries and what ifs made it past the desire step. So I dismissed them. And the more I dismissed those worries and what ifs, the more excitement came in. The more ideas that I was excited about replaced those ideas that I was worried about, the more ready I was to slip into that kayak. As I got into it and I paddled away from the docks towards the eagles that were soaring overhead, I thought it was silly to worry. And almost immediately a new thought replaced that one. As one of those eagles swooped down and snatched a salmon out of the water right next to me, I thought, this is epic. I've realized I can turn just about any idea into an epic idea. I had an idea that I would take a group of scouts camping in the snow. We got together and discussed this and decided that we would turn it into an epic idea by, instead of camping on the snow, we would camp inside the snow. So we did the research. We learned how to properly dig out a snow cave. We learned what to expect as far as temperatures and what gear we would need to have to make sure that we did this safely. I'll tell you, nothing tests commitment quite like taking a group of teenage boys into the mountains to dig a hole in the snow that's adequate to sleep in safely. We succeeded, though. We learned that if you would take the entrance to this snow cave and make sure that it was just even 1 inch lower than the sleep shelf inside, the temperature, by having a body inside that cave, would raise by as much as 20 degrees. We also learned that if you dug out a little cubby in the side wall of that snow cave and you put just 1 lit candle in there, the temperature would rise as much as 20 more degrees. It was 15 degrees outside on this camp out and 50 degrees inside the caves. We made sure to poke a hole through the ceiling so that the fresh air would come in and feed that candle. Make sure that the boys slept safely throughout the night. The caves immediately filled with steam as they warmed up so much. The boys' clothes actually dried out while they slept. They learned how to be safe if they were ever caught in the snow. They learned how to have fun in our wonderful outdoors in wintertime. Today, I have a new idea. I would like to help kids who have a busy brain like mine have success in school. I'd like it to be an outdoor school. I think we could build it in the next 7 months. A school where kids can take ideas and turn them into epic projects that are student-led and peer-graded. A school without desks. Rather, tables where they look at each other instead of an educator. They collaborate with each other on learning and mentor each other. This school will be built next to hundreds of acres of undeveloped land with miles of trails for hiking, streams where they can test water quality, and forest for exploring. In September of 2020, Hayden Canyon Charter School starts its own epic adventure. Can you imagine running your own ordinary idea through 5 simple steps and turning it into an epic adventure? If you can, you are well on your way to your own epic adventures. Thank you.